So, the Department of Homeland Security, the DHS, releases a report just a day before our nationwide Tea Parties, our tax day protest of record deficits and irresponsible spending by Obama and Democrats. Now, the DHS report is just an attempt to define right-wing extremism in our country and to use police profiling against the law-abiding citizens that it is defining within its text. Now, just weeks ago, similar nonsense was given to Missouri state troopers by the MEAC, the Missouri Information Analysis Center. The report gave advice on how to identify so-called right-wing extremists. The report mentioned that many of these right-wing nut jobs fly Gadsden flags like the one behind me, and or support candidates like Ron Paul, Chuck Baldwin, or Bob Barr. Now, under pressure, the MEAC rescinded and admitted their report was flawed, and said that they would review it. Now, since then, it's been determined that the report by MEAC was issued in cooperation with the Department of Homeland Security. So it's no surprise that they would be issuing a report similar to that today. It states, quote, right-wing extremism in the United States can be broadly divided into those groups, movements, and adherents that are primarily hate-oriented and those that are mainly anti-government, rejecting federal authority in favor of state or local authority, or rejecting government authority entirely. It may include groups and individuals that are dedicated to a single issue, such as opposition to abortion or immigration, unquote. So, supporting the Constitution makes you an extremist. Being peacefully opposed to abortion or illegal immigration also means you're an extremist. You ain't even taken up arms against your government or anything, but you're an extremist. Now, since the DHS is the agency listing this report, and they being in charge of Homeland Security with the emphasis on the word security, one can only gather that our government is not only defining what a right-wing extremist is, but also implying that such people are possibly very dangerous. It continues, quote, nevertheless, the consequences of a prolonged economic downturn, including real estate foreclosures, unemployment, and an inability to obtain credit, could create a fertile recruiting environment for right-wing extremists, and even result in confrontations between such groups and government authorities similar to those in the past, unquote. So, you better not lose your job or you're going to be an enemy of the state. Also, continuing, quote, proposed imposition of firearms restrictions and weapons bans likely would attract new members into the ranks of right-wing extremist groups, as well as potentially spur some of them to begin planning and training for violence against the government. The high volume of purchases and stockpiling of weapons and ammunition by right-wing extremists in anticipation of restrictions and bans in some parts of the country continue to be a primary concern to law enforcement, unquote. If you support gun rights and or belong to the NRA, in the eyes of your new government, you may be a dangerous right-wing extremist. So, it also states, returning veterans possess combat skills and experience that are attractive to right-wing extremists, unquote. And you know, this one really gets me. Our heroes coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan are actually feared by Obama's government. And you know, you thought he was just anti-war. He's not just anti-war, he's anti-military. There's a reason Obama fears our military, and that fear has everything to do with him wanting to establish this civilian security force and fund it as well as the military. And, quote, right-wing extremists chatter on the internet, unquote. Now that sentence is referring to myself and the few patriots that still vlog on this site and post various things around the internet. I've been flying the Gadsden flag behind me since I opened this channel. Obama's government is letting you know that vloggers like me and sites like freerepublic.com are dangerous because we exercise our First Amendment rights to, quote, internet chatter that disagrees with their policies. The report also goes on to state, anti-Semitic extremists attribute these losses to a deliberate conspiracy conducted by a cabal of Jewish financial elites. These accusatory tactics are employed to draw new recruits into right-wing extremist groups and further radicalize those already subscribing to extremist beliefs. Now this is confusing to me because most anti-Semites I've run into are left-wing jerks and Muslims, but it seems Obama is taking upright lawful citizens, including those that support Jewish people in Israel, and lumping them right in there with the neo-Nazis. Many right-wing extremists are antagonistic towards the new presidential administration and its perceived stance on a range of issues, unquote. Well, they aren't narrowing it down here at all, are they? Basically, you're a right-wing extremist if you didn't feel all hopey-changey on election night and or have differences with Obama on any number of various issues. Also, quote, right-wing extremists were concerned during the 1990s with the perception that illegal immigrants were taking away American jobs through their willingness to work at significantly lower wages, unquote. The report makes no mention that many Americans are concerned with the increase in violent crime that illegal immigration has brought with it. It seems Obama's government is more interested in pursuing their political enemies at home than protecting us from this foreign invasion. The report closes by stating that so-called right-wing extremism is the biggest threat to national security right now. Obama is pretending that 9/11 never happened, that a group of law-abiding citizens who were quite possibly the biggest supporters of the war on terror are now the terrorists. Unbelievable. What is Obama's government afraid of? Obama is afraid of this. Obama doesn't like peaceful opposition to his record spending and deficits. He doesn't like us speaking against his policies, which are pushing our nation away from its capitalist traditions and into a socialist command economy. His approval ratings are among the lowest in history for someone who has only been president for 3 months. That is why he is demonizing us on the day before our biggest protest. And you know, he should be afraid, but not of terrorism or extremism from us, but of the sheer size and scope of this peaceful movement that's being joined by many moderates as well. Now, I want to see everybody at their Tea Party rallies tomorrow. And don't forget, I hope that you are all finished with your taxes so that you can join us. I'll be there with my camcorder. All indications are that this thing is going to be huge, but it will not be big without you. We're going to miss you if you aren't there. Now, Obama should be afraid, because as Thomas Jefferson once said, quote, "When governments fear the people, there is liberty. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny."